order the budget workshop for the Eastpointe City Council on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Here.
Councilperson Lucido?
Here.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilperson Marion?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. With that, we'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Duchesne, who has an agenda for this budget review tonight.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I think we have distributed a budget workshop schedule, trying to take into consideration council preferences from last year or last couple of budget cycles. Just in opening comments, really just to pick up where the budget message was delivered to you. Again, we believe that this budget is presented will be in a format and context that it will again be considered as a distinguished presentation by the Government Finance Officers Association. It represents a certain implication of policy that has been consistent over the past few years, follows the fiscal policies that have been adopted and readopted and amended by council in the past, and for the most part is a continuation of a multi-year financing plan that we were able to put together a couple of years ago when the voters were very positive about their city and voted SMORSA into place. With that, I have really, I know you've had the budget for the context of this for about a month, performance, and this is adopted at the activity level, so that is the funding level summaries that you'll find. For example, District Court starts on page 60, and its performance and funding level summaries are found on page 68. There is then a summary of those activities that are the budget in component on page 138. So if we take a moment to compare and contrast those, you have the appropriations. First you have the revenue and general fund, and then appropriations, for example, with the key categories of the personnel services, other services and charges, pension or OPEB liabilities, supplies, and capital outlay. So on those 5 areas is the typical presentation and the activity level of budget within the fund. And the court administrator is here for questions or review questions and follow up in detail in the budget. The manager's recommended budget is before you. And as I say, starting on page 68, you'll notice the funding level summary and then the objectives for the court for the upcoming year. With that, I defer, Madam Mayor, to the council members and questions or comments from them.
So how about if we ask the court administrator to come up to the rostrum, and maybe you can just give us a short, sweet, simple overview of any changes from last year.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name's Karen Hayded. I'm the Magistrate Court Administrator on behalf of the 38th District Court. Judge Gertz puts his apologies in. He had a prior commitment. He couldn't attend tonight. I've had numerous conversations with Mr. Duchesne in reference to upcoming things that are going to be mandated by the State Court Administrator's Office and the Supreme Court. They're looking to put a public defender in place, which moves the court-appointed attorney line item out of our budget into the city's budget. We've had numerous conversations. 4 standards were just passed by the Michigan Supreme Court. I've been having numerous conversations with Mr. Duchesne and Tanya Grillo, who's heading as a regional administrator over the public defender office. As right now, they're trying to come up with a totality of how much money it actually is going to cost on behalf of the Macomb County District Courts and what the percentages, if anything, that the funding units are going to have to contribute to that fund. In addition, we're looking to always increase our security throughout the court, given what the temperament is in the current society today. The court's been before this council and have asked for additional court personnel, which you guys have granted, which you are very grateful for, in addition to the current x-ray machine and metal detectors that we have in place. Our caseload is kind of fluctuating right now with the police department's hiring of people. It takes a while for the officers to get acclimated, so obviously we see ebb and flows as far as through our caseload. We're in the process of negotiating our contract. Hopefully, I have a tentative agreement in place. I'm just waiting for the union to come back as to whether or not they're going to accept as to what was offered from the court. I currently have 4 full-time employees that are at top pay. I have 3 other employees that are at intermediate pay, and then I have a new deputy clerk that is leaving the 36th District Court to be employed with our court starting on June 5th from the vacancy of Terry Wolpinski. So Terry was at the top of the pay. Obviously, we're bringing a new employee in at the lower rate in addition to the tier system and the hybrid system for the pension system. At this time, if the council has any additional questions or specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Does anybody have any questions for the court? Anyone?
Okay, well, thank you. I encourage you all, if you can, I know a couple council people have stopped by in the past to see the court. The judge and I do encourage that you do stop by so that you can kind of really get a feel as to what we do on a day-to-day basis. Again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Our next one is the library.
Performance indicators on page 118 and the budget control page numbers on 145. Again, if there are any questions regarding that, obviously, very active library, a lot of capital investment over the past few years, certainly is producing a very visible positive result, as well as internal operations. Performance indicators are on page 120 with additional outputs and metrics measures on page 121. That, any questions?
Sterling, you want to come forward? Since you're on vacation, you may as well.
She couldn't wait to get here tonight. She was anxious all day.
I was the assistant director, but unfortunately she broke her foot. I'm Carol Sterling, director of the Eastpointe Memorial Library. Pretty much the capital improvements are done now that have been going on for the past 3 years, so that payment's done. And other than that, it's pretty much a maintenance budget. I really didn't add anything except we now have a porter, 5 hours a week, which has been extremely helpful, and that is under the custodial contract. But other than that, I really changed that.
Anyone have any questions for the library? You do? No? Happy vacation.
Thank you very much.
Finish painting that room?
Yes, just like an hour.
Thank you, Carol.
The revenues that have been calculated and would be responded to, if any questions by the finance director, certainly nothing. We are producing recommendations that are consistent with existing tax structure and fees, and those aspects are found and summarized on page 138 in a condensed form for the general fund. The general fund proposed budget for revenues are $22,582,594. And any questions on those? Be happy to attempt to answer those.
Do you have anything to say? Mr. Blum?
Well, obviously, the 2 biggest items are taxes and the Samorsa charge that we receive. Both of those have gone up the statutory 0.9% that we get with all the Headley rollback limitations and all that. The rest of them are just budgeted along trend lines. But the one that did drop is code enforcement, and that's because the rental inspection falls within that category, and they're caught up. So the fees from all the catch-up activity, they'll just get kind of back to a normal day-to-day operation. So there's going to be a slight decline in that. But other than that, it's kind of a status quo. We always assume about a 1% increase on the revenues and then whatever we get on the taxes. So there's not a whole lot to it.
Anyone have any questions on this, on revenues?
When Should we maybe later ask, I think mine are too specific, maybe at the time, some of the questions. Revenues, like, so what's, when we go, what's the page number here, 138 then, that we're talking about right now?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm good for now then on questions.
Did you have a plan to talk about this later, under revenue, or?
I figured, their question about like specific line items, so I didn't know.
You want to ask them now?
I think maybe we'd go through the department heads first. I think that's what we tried to do before, and then maybe we could go back into those unless they apply to them. Some are probably questions for Steve and Randy, but then I have a few maybe for the department heads also. I don't know how anyone else was thinking about doing this.
Either is fine to us,
Why don't we
yeah.
go through the
Yeah,
department heads first, so they can leave?
Yeah.
No. Why is everybody so worried about the meeting? Honestly, okay. No, not a problem. You want to jump then to, let's go for city council and.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
is that your turn?
Yeah, 58, page 58 gives you the performance objectives. We generally sketch from the general direction, some of it recommended, some of it part of the job. Obviously preserving the city's infrastructure, economic base, long-term fiscal stability. That's one carried forward a few years, and then policy direction, administration, and implementation of various programs. The money is obviously as stated, and if there's any questions, again, or certainly an area council wants to add or subtract from, we'll be happy to give you input on that. I think the only thing I'll say about performance indicators, I should have probably said at the beginning, is they're estimates and metrics that some are historical based and from what has been driven. It is not necessarily, and it comes up from time to time, is, are you saying we need to hold 4 public hearings? No, we're just simply saying that on the average, that's typically what happens in a year. So in some of the metrics, it's a measurement based on, you know, how you balance out the historical trends and put those forward. Will we adopt 4 ordinances? It's just a method of budgeting and planning forward, but I mean, you don't have to adopt 4 ordinances. I need not say that to many of you. And then how many show cause hearings we estimate will be held, and regular council meetings, of course. Okay.
Okay.
I know it's a big department, but a lot to go through there. Okay.
Not very much to go through in that department. How about the city managers?
City managers on page 70 is performance indicators. That basically, again, is the office is as the past couple of years in staffing. The performance indicators, what I decided to use in here is our profile from our citywide dashboard or scoreboard. This is under some development. We are working with not only our Munetrics team that works with us, but also Madison Heights and some area communities are putting together a different type of scoring system or scoreboard. And when we say that, this isn't just like it's not a brag piece or a negative piece. It's to show and try, follow trends in the community, best of our data, and be more data-driven and decision-driven by data. I think it helps also people analyze and council make good decisions or see where challenges are. And it's always been said that if you want to know what the values of community are, see where its money is spent in my business. And that's a common saying. And clearly we see that in Eastpointe, that the values are in public safety and enforcement of codes. And those are things that are highlighted in here that our budget does represent when you just take a statistical review of. So with that, other performance indicators are estimates in number of meetings and agenda statements prepared based on our history. Some of these we're in, for instance, in a state of flux. We're negotiating labor contracts, so that would change for 17, 18. If we get some more finished before the end of the fiscal year, and we'd have to change that. Bid proposals, grievances, obviously those are driven by outside forces to a degree. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Couple questions on these performance indicators. I'm curious, on roads, overall condition on that phaser rating, what's the 10 is tops?
No, I think 7 is actually, 7 or, I think, so we're in the upper middle, and we, of course, council is authorized to do it again, so,
5.4, I was just curious
Yeah.
what we're shooting for.
yeah, if it was 20, we'd be having a problem, but it
But
is-
then I'm curious about the fire EMS dispatch time. That's gotta be a typo.
Well, that is actually, that's a typo because it was data-driven from Sarisa, and it wasn't transposed over onto our big board, so we have to go back and change that electronically in the system.
Maybe we needed an asterisk in there. or
Yeah, we will, well, the final version of the budget, we haven't done, some things, as you'll find in here, we have a long shopping list now of changes to make that are some even grammatical, some others that are statistical concern, but obviously 98% of the items are done, but we'll be making some changes in those.
That'd be
areas.
putting Jimmy John's to shame.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
We're teleporting now.
Yes, that would be. Asked John to make that a goal, but hasn't found a way to do that quite yet.
I guess I had some
0.23
questions
seconds.
on page 74 on these metrics. Why weren't further updated? Like, we have 2014 and 15 in public safety. Why aren't they up to like 16?
Well, a couple of things, and the director can explain. The FBI stats are where these are pulled from.
Oh, okay.
And these are actually imported by an external party. We don't make these up. So they drive them from the FBI into Munetrix. And it's pretty consistently a year lag, John, is that about?
The FBI normally publishes the statistics in September of the following the end of the year, so 9 months.
So, and that's really positive that the crime rates would drop, crime per 1,000 residents would drop from 15.8 to 8.2?
That would be a positive.
That's what they said? Wow. Okay. Any other questions in this area?
One about the personnel for the city manager's office. Are we sticking with what we have? We've added, one person over the last couple of years, and second one about 5 years ago.
Yeah, there's no staffing changes from, I think, the last 2 years now, at least the last year.
Okay.
Anything else?
The finance department comes up on page 76, begins there. The staffing summary of budget, and performance indicators follow on funding level summary performance begins on 79.
Do you want to say anything about this, Mr. Blum?
Staffing levels are consistent, they're flat. The biggest change, you'll see that in a lot of departments, is the retirement contribution and how it's being allocated around. It's coming in a little bit lower than we had anticipated, and then we've shuffled the deck, if you will, of where it's going. So finance appears to be dropping, but most of that is the change in retirement contributions. Yeah, staffing's our biggest dollar amount. It's up a little bit, consistent with the assumption of 2% overall. Yeah, again, it's kind of boring. So.
Any questions?
I think one, and I think we went over this just a couple meetings ago, looked like workers' compensation rate was going up for us because of that, our rating went up. It looked like that was
Yeah.
going up in most of the departments.
Yep, workers' comp will be higher than the budget you see here. We always wait till we get general liability and workers' comp done, and then, we do our budget amendments later in the year that'll reflect that. But, workers' comp will be a little bit higher than what you see in all the departments.
Okay.
Under Mr. Blum also is the assessor's office, carries forward on page performance objectives and indicators on page 83 through 84 with the funding summary. Obviously, this is dramatically different in personnel because we do have a professional services agreement with a corporation that provides assessing services.
And I would say we are extremely happy with the company. They have been on top of everything. We used to have a laundry list of tribunals and such that needed to be handled, and there's a whiteboard that would be completely filled. Now you walk in the office and there might be 2 or 3 sitting there. It's one of those, they're a little more educated, they've got the proper certifications, and they know how to do it in a timely fashion.
Yeah, they do function for a number of cities, so contemporary issues are dealt with very promptly. In the past, I received some notices from the Michigan Tax Commission and reviewing data, wanted some different reports and changes, and those have been zeroed out as concerns by the Tax Commission. So, and that's the most, and I think Mr. Albright would also say in dealing with the consultants or the service provider under contract has been very positive in his area of
Very
tax
positive.
appeals.
They respond timely to all emails, and we have a great working relationship.
Speaking of the city attorney, there's a nice segue into page 85.
Thank you, Steve. Our performance indicators are located on page 86. The one thing I did want to point out is under the number of open lawsuits, there is 6, and that was an increase over the year before. That is not through any fault of the city. Actually, that's because of the city doing positive things, that property owners filed a lawsuit to stop demolition proceedings on some of the dangerous building cases that the city council had ordered demolition on. And so when the property owner realized that the city was actually serious about effectuating a demolition, they then filed an action in the Macomb County Circuit Court in order to halt that demolition. But again, it wasn't anything, those lawsuits aren't the result of anything wrong on the city's part. And some of those lawsuits also include the city filing nuisance abatement actions in the circuit court as well. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
The,
Do you have questions?
Sure.
the Department of Justice lawsuit just seems like, an unusual lawsuit, of course, compared to other ones we've had. Is it going to be?
It's actually the first one in the state of Michigan that they've ever brought.
Right, right. Is that going to be costly for us? I guess,
At this point, it's impossible to say if it will be costly. Will there be legal fees involved? Certainly. The city is involved right now in the discovery process and getting information over to the Department of Justice. At this point, they haven't indicated any reason to essentially go away. So if this case goes all the way through the end, yes, it could be quite costly. But at this point, it's just impossible to determine what those costs would include.
thank you.
You're welcome.
The city clerk begins on page 87. Performance indicators obviously subsequently follow on 89. And again, staffing and the costs that are across the board, changes such as comp and that were mentioned, have made changes to it. Otherwise, the performance program is restated has the same objectives with, of course, a city election being held this year. Questions or anything?
I had one question. Can we talk about the elections for a minute? I think it looked like our share was for the new election machines was 75,000, I think is what.
That's what we estimated in the CIP. It's going to be much lower based on the new information that's come out from the state. Because at the time we were putting the estimates together, there were some things they weren't going to cover that they now are going to with the HAVA grant. So we're estimating we'll be closer to 45 than the 75.
And then also, yeah, I think I wrote the wrong page number down, but about going forward also, at the MML conference, we talked about it with Secretary of State Ruth Johnson was there, and she was mentioning that it seemed like a kind of costly, like, maintenance fee. Seemed like it cost over 4 or 5 years the same as the election machine. Was that going to be required, or can we?
Well, the maintenance fee for the new equipment, the first 5 years is covered by the grant. It's 6 through 10, when you analyze the now vendor that we're going with, is not nearly the expensive as it first was thought to be. There's, the whole process is more like a word of a bid, and then let's make a deal all in lined up at the same time. So I finally have the numbers available that I can actually give those to you, what 6 through 10 would cost us in year 6, starting.
Okay, yeah, if you could send that to us.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
The next one is the one-page summary of the insurance department, as we categorize it, and it's on page 90. They are directly the costs regarding the various retiree healthcare trust, City Hall portion workers' comp, retiree healthcare contribution, and general liability expenses. Obviously, a pretty large number when you look at the retiree costs, but actually, I want to comment that it's down and projected to be down from 2015-16. Workers' comp liability dealt with some discussion on that. So, any questions? Mr. Ball will be happy to answer.
Do you have any comments on that?
Don't say your usual comments about retirees.
It is,
On
yeah, it's
camera.
down because we changed the coverage, not because there's less of them. But, yeah, we're on retiree health care, we project a 8% increase. What we found was this year, the Medicare portion went up 3%. However, the non-Medicare portion went up over 12%. So it's, you know, little of this, little of that, but we've used 8% in the budget, and that probably will come in pretty close when it's all said and done.
On the workman's comp, was our rating adjusted based on any kind of injuries, or?
Oh, yeah, it's experience rated.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, was there a significant increase in?
Unfortunately, yes.
We had a couple serious.
They do a 3-year look back on the rating. A 1.00 is considered normal. Anything less than 1 is good. Anything over 1 is bad. We have risen to a 1.62 multiplier on the workers' comp. It is a combination of, well, any workers' comp injury, workers' comp is on the hook for life. So we've had some retirees that had knee injuries, that got knee replacements that workers' comp is still paying for. Along with current employees, it's been an unusual past 12 months with shoulder injuries around this city between police, fire, and DPW. A lot of injuries, a lot of surgeries. So I actually expect our rates will go up again next year just because of the rolling 3-year look back. this past 12 to 18 months have been pathetic, for lack of a better term.
The general government category, 91, involves activities that are not found in the general fund as allocated to a specific activity. They are general in nature, enterprise-wide in many cases, and this department reflects those costs involving from running of City Hall to the general IT and other professional services. And that begins on page 91 with funding level and objectives on 92.
I'm curious, where do the cell tower rentals fall into this mix? Because I'm kind of curious about the amount of money that you see that we're getting in here on revenue off of them. And my concern that it seems like we should have took a big chunk of that money and put it into that road, so that we're not going to end up beating that up again.
Which road?
The access road to that cell tower that they
Oh,
drive up
on
and
the
down
Spindler,
like
okay.
it's a freeway.
Yeah, we actually put the cell tower revenue goes into the CIP fund, the 402 fund, and then that's used for any capital improvements. So that would be a logical use of those funds.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it seems like we should just earmark a chunk of that, because they're the ones tearing the road up with the traffic, because they're constantly back there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think a toll booth would be a tremendous.
They'll drive over the sledding hill to get to it, though, so.
Okay.
Police Department begins, indicators begin on page 93 that follow. Obviously, the largest single division and department of the city general fund. The objectives are, and the changes from last year are on page 96 and 97. Workload indicators and outputs are also included.
Were we planning on hiring a few more officers, trying to, this year?
We have just, our objective is to be fully staffed for once, and we try. Fire two, and that would be, we're at the set number, so the staffing levels remain the same at this time, and we'll be, reviewing that in the upcoming year to see if there is an expansion. There's some discussion about that. We have never been able to get into the DEA task force that we want to, because we've never been fully staffed. So fingers crossed, and possibly maintaining the full force that we have in the next fiscal year. We may be looking at some additional participation in specialty units.
What about, I think I saw it on, it's in the, the drug forfeiture fund. I think it said body cameras is what it was getting at. I think we talked about that last year. We haven't bought any yet, correct?
No, we were, and again, this is something I think the director and I both have positive feelings about and recommending, but at the same time, well, frankly, there's some concerns. I think it'll work out well for law enforcement, but data storage, FOI availability, management of that information, like redacting at times where you have exposed innocent citizens on camera. I mean, there's a lot of things that still go into it, and I was a bit surprised when an agency in our county went ahead and put them in, because those answers haven't been made yet. And I know that if Director McNeilitz wants to take a couple minutes just to outline some of the concerns the Michigan Chiefs have, I think it might be good for public and council.
Yes, well, as the city manager, I think touched on the major issues involved with body-worn cameras for police. There are many departments that are holding off, as the legislature has proposed several somewhat differing bills as to what the requirements would be in terms of actual operational policies as to when an officer was required to record, how long a department was required to store those recordings, and issues like that. So the three main issues are the FOIA protections that we would like to see, pretty broad protections, that body-worn camera footage in a private setting would not have to be produced. There's also redaction issues with staff having to go through, perhaps at an incident where several officers were present and recording. If there was a FOIA request, they would have to go through perhaps hours of video and redact things that we could not release based on legal or privacy issues. Those issues haven't really been resolved by the Michigan legislature. In other states, some of those issues have been resolved where they've given broad exemptions to release of that information, those videos under FOIA. The other thing is the prohibitive storage costs in some cases. For example, with in-car video, which would not be as extensive, we hold on to those videos for 3 years because that's the statute of limitations for any civil rights claims. And that's how I've always operated, and that's how we operate here at Eastpointe. To do that with body-worn camera video also, that would be an enormous amount of storage of video, because you don't always know what you could discard and what you can't. So you hold on to everything. And the cost for that would be very high. So we have put money in there as a contingency for startup costs for a body-worn camera program, and but at this point, we haven't moved forward.
How does it work for the in-car cameras? Does that automatically sync with something, or do we manually do something
Well,
to save it?
yeah, we save them by incident. Not every
Oh, okay.
minute of video is recorded.
Okay.
Not every, so, and that is downloaded wirelessly to an in-house server.
Okay. So then that is, though, what is referenced here, because I think there's a spelling error, but the body cameras are in the drug forfeiture fund, right, then, for the operating equipment? It's,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was looking at the line item. Do we pay out for sick or vacation days? Because just looking at the line item, I don't know if I was reading it wrong, because we have 25,000 in the line item, then it says the activity's 0.
That's a contingency for officers that retire at the end of their career. They get paid out on vacation time.
Okay.
So every year that I've been here, and before, it was 25,000. It could be 0, it could be less than that. That was the number I was advised to use.
Okay, thank you.
And then, actually, to go on that, that was my last question. It looks like a lot of officers do sell off their vacation time, looks like, because it looks like, I don't know if it was different than the previous years, because I'm looking in the notes section, but between what Councilman Kleinfeld was saying, except it doesn't say 25 here, let's see. I'm looking on page 31 if you have them numbered, but it's 718 for holiday comp pay, holiday comp and sick pay, and then 12-hour shift comp, and then, some vacation time mixed with longevity pay. All that comes out to like $375,000. That'd be like 718 and the two 718s and 719. Is that pretty usual for 1 year? I guess it seems like a lot of vacation time sold off.
Well, the officers contractually have the right to sell so much vacation time and and convert time to comp. The city manager and the finance director may be able to expand on it, but we really budget to the max that we could experience.
Okay.
So it usually doesn't reach that amount, but the answer to your first question is yes, they do sell back a lot of time.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think I see what you're saying, because the, looks like the activity for 15-16 was, for those three, like 226 instead of 375. 375 probably would have been the max.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Really, we've addressed drug forfeiture on 117 unless there's questions further. I would just then take us to 98, which is the fire department. Beginning on that page, 99 and 100 are a summary of budget changes from last year and performance objectives, as well as funding level summaries on page 101.
So we had budgeted fire hydrants again. Another 150,000 it looks like. Let's see, page 39, I think, in the line item.
That's correct.
So was there, it seems like we've replaced an awful lot just in 2 years. Has there been, or plan to, is there a defect in them, or like, is there some sort of new requirement, or it just seems like some of them are very old, and that's looks like a lot of money that we've been spending to replace them.
Several of them that were replaced were to create new hydrant locations where there was a excessive distance between hydrants, where the fire department would have to make an extremely long deployment of hose to make the connection. So some of them that were asked for were for that reason, and there may have been some replacements too. Mr. Pry might be able to speak to that. And I was advised that 150,000 should be put in for this year's budget as well.
And then I forget, did we install these ourselves, or do we contract them out? Because I'd like to see something come before council then next time, because it did not this last time, because that's a big project.
Yeah, with a larger context project, we certainly will, and the 15 that were put in, they were done certainly to fill voids and complete system. Where there's also an ISO rating report that gives us a fire rating of 4, and the strongest elements within the rating is actually not fire department per se, but it is water supply and delivery system. So there's a number of things that go into it, and age of hydrants and serviceability of them is part of it. We have, I would say, I can't name the year, but some of the older hydrants in the city are early 1900s. 1923. So capacity, diameter, and size, I mean, they function. And the department does maintain them, as in they will, they'll be threading, greased, and then scraped and painted and those kind of things. But at some point, it is very beneficial for your ISO rating and things to maintain that. The other thing that goes into, and we should be, the fire department, in essence, the general fund, if you keep the two corporations in mind, really does sort of rent hydrants from the water and sewer fund, in a sense, in that case. So because one's a corporation enterprise funds, one's a general fund, so there is some of that static, that interplay there that goes on between these cross charges.
I'd assume we test these. I don't know how often you're supposed to test an individual hydrant, but we must test quite a few of these each year, probably rotate it, something like that. Is that how?
John, do you have any statistic on the actual testing events, or Tony? I don't know number of events tested except their actual utilization, but yeah, hydrant turning and repairs or testing is supposed to be done. Valve turning is supposed to take place too in the water system, but unfortunately when you have an older water system, in many cases when you actually do the exercising of the system, you actually have it break. And then we have other valves to fix. So in some cases, you're very cautious about that, but that is a requirement to do some testing. I don't know if we have stats tonight to share with you.
We did fire testing, fire hydrant testing, I think when Greg Brown was, when Greg Brown was still here, and then later on, when Hagan was still here, we did fire hydrant testing. But it seems to me, just from seeing the department out there, that maybe it's every 5 to 7 years that we open them up and test them.
Well, every hydrant gets flowed every year, every hydrant in the city.
Not, it always hasn't been that way.
Pardon me?
It's not always been that way.
Well, the fire department flows every single hydrant in the city before they pump them down for winter. So yes, they are tested. Fire department and us, we also grease them, we maintain them. We have a pretty good system as it is.
It's much better.
And comment to why we're updating fire hydrants is all your new hydrants have stork fittings. They are a quick coupler system for hooking up the intake hoses to the fire trucks. The days of screwing a hose onto a fire hydrant is obsolete. The standard is 300 to 600 feet on a new hydrant. Fire trucks carry 1,200 feet of hose. We had areas that were 15 to 1,800 feet in between hydrants when they were replaced. And the contractor that put those hydrants in, done them under contract from the water main contract that we were doing. So yes, we have, the amount of money that was just put in there for hydrants doesn't even touch the surface of what we need.
And I think if you look on your home insurance, there's a special place, usually about on the 4th or 5th page.
Fire rating.
You have your home insurance, and they want to know where your location is of your nearest fire hydrant.
And we are a 4, which is, you'll find that throughout the suburbs, probably the highest rating normally achieved. Most of the other communities are, 4 is desirable, and that's kind of the mainstream, no pun intended. 3, I'm not even sure of who is a 3. I really am not.
Troy, you know what they are?
They're 4.
Sure.
Last I knew.
Last time I heard, they were at 2, and they're a volunteer fire.
2? I didn't know that, John, but last I heard, they were same as in the category.
What's the lowest rating? Just curious.
It's the highest is the better.
Well, right.
The lowest, I
Well,
have no idea. It's
Yeah, in
probably-
theory, ISO has a 1 rating, but it would be, I can't even imagine what that community would look like, demographically as far as location outside. It would
Probably
be,
Atlantis, where it's submerged.
well, it depends if you can pump the water. No, I don't know what one that would be. I know Sterling Heights is 4, Warren 4.
When I worked in Troy, then I was upset that they were a higher rating with a volunteer fire department than a manned fire department. And I questioned that a few years ago. And I got answers, but I think it's politics personally.
There's a little subjectivity into their definition, because the independent, insurance office is supposed to work independently of insurance companies and others, but I wouldn't say they're totally without influence, but the 70% of the rating's based on the water system. So indeed, that's that's going to have a big impact with that, how you deliver the system, age of the system, capacity, volume, et cetera.
I know that's a fact, because where I'm buying up north, they told me when the fire trucks comes, they bring hot dogs. Because there usually isn't enough water.
You got a
That
lake
happen-
now.
That happens in Washington Township, too.
I'd like to point out that we are not the only city replacing fire hydrants. Actually, Carol and myself can attest that Clinton Township is replacing fire hydrants. She lives 4 houses from me and has a nice big square muddy spot where they put the new fire hydrant in her front yard, or right of way. But, yeah, they're putting as Mr. Price said, the snorkel connection on the new fire hydrants.
Anything else for fire?
Community development is on page 102 and follows this is, again, one of the larger departments with a number of facets in that. The performance indicators and funding level summaries on 105, and the activities that follow are noted, and budget changes from the prior year.
Any questions in that area?
I think I had one. I know it, never mind. Nope, I'm all set.
You're all set?
Okay, involved in that, of course, is the Planning Commission's budget, and that is under the responsibility of Director Van Haren and support there. They are, planning is on 102. Any questions regarding the Planning Commission? Activity 400 in the general fund.
It's quite a jump from 36 to 49. What is the reason for that under Planning Commission? From 1516 on page 140
Oh, okay.
to the amended budget is 49.5. Was that because of the master plan?
Is that the end of the master plan fund we've been doing?
Master plan paying for, this was budgeted over a 2-year period. So it was last budget year as well as this coming forward budget year.
But we've been, but wasn't it included in 1516 as well?
So money was, but we hadn't,
Yeah, expended then.
really got a good start on it during that year, so we didn't use much of that money, and so we kind of pushed it forward to the following budget year.
So do you anticipate that the Planning Commission funds are going to drop down in 17, 18?
Is that because of the revenue?
Yeah, I'm just looking, it's like, what, 16,000 more?
Than the 15-16 year budget.
Right.
So from 16-17, it's a slight increase to 17-18. The budget we're in is at 49.5. We are projecting a slight increase to 52,125, but I think your subsequent question is 18-19 will probably show, no doubtedly will show a drop for purposes
Because
of
our
the,
planning commission, the planner's fees are limited to what, 7,000? Is that what it was?
Well, unless it's specifically related to a case.
Okay.
And the applicant is reimbursing
Right.
those fees. So, yes, they have a retainer amount that we pay for their services on an annual basis.
So do we ever see a return or the reimbursement from the individual businesses?
Always,
Does it show up on the budget?
no. It would show up in revenue, but, and Mr. Blum could probably say exactly where in the revenue, but we always get 100% reimbursement on those.
So I'm just asking, Mr. Blum, where does when you have a business coming in and they're doing a proposal, our planning fees go up from the planner?
Right.
And so you're kind of budgeting that in the proposed budget. But where does the revenue come in and where is that? You can't predict it very well, but you're anticipating it in the charges.
Yeah, it shows up as part of the construction permits when we get reimbursed for the site plan reviews.
Okay. Right, I don't have any else. Anyone else?
When was roughly the master plan, when were we finishing that again, or we?
Finish in, the next 3 or 4 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Parks are included in there too, to the level that those are under direct supervision of Director Van Haren. Again, focused on outcomes objectives on 102. Any questions there? I can move ahead. Have to move around a little bit. Special events, page 108. 109, special events are as particular a activity. The Department of Public Works is actually not a singular department, is funded from various specific sources of revenue. The one general fund area would be the special services, such as parades and Gratiot Cruise and other things. Of course, these events are reimbursed by the city for its staffing costs, but this is where we expend the funds. You remember the pocketing aspect of public finance, revenue over here, one department, revenue department, and then expenses, the other category. So that is why that's carried on 109.
And where do we see the revenue from that?
Mr. Blum, Mr. Revenue?
I think, page 52 in the line item, if you have those numbers.
There is a reimbursement special event account, and it just is part of other revenue on the summary.
Okay.
Now, I think I see in the line item, trying to figure out where this change was at, but it's page 53 for me in the line items. I know we get reimbursed for the special events, but last year we had, looks like 10,000 in activity, but now it says 50,000. As far as I know, we don't have that much more going on in the city. I was just trying to figure out where that was coming from.
Payment for the Gratiot Cruise came in late, so we didn't have it last year, and we're gonna get a double reimbursement this year from a
Okay.
calendar, or fiscal year standpoint.
Well, actually, you pay it out in June, right, and then it comes in the following year.
We normally get the check in July. They forgot, and by the time we got the check, it was after the cutoff for the accounting purposes, so I couldn't book it in. Yes,
It was at a meeting when we dictated that it would be paid.
and whoever was dictated to didn't do it, and I had to ask the question, and they scrambled and got me the check, but it was too late for the accounting cutoff, so.
I think that's where the phrase comes from. Checks in the mail.
Yep.
We can get it to you by June 30th. Okay.
We appreciate that. The accountants appreciate it.
All right, let's go on to major local streets.
Major local streets, page 110. We have projects to be funded this year. They're noted on page 110. And of course, they were discussed in our special capital session with council on January 10th. Revenues and expenses, 111, as well as performance indicators. These major and local streets obviously are significant investment of 99.78 miles of roadways. And the estimates of activities are based on historical estimates, except for snow removal, because I wish we could predict exactly how many snow removals we have, occurrences. But that involves everything involving maintenance, from grass, shoulder maintenance, right-of-way maintenance, streets, surfacing, resurfacing, patching potholes, et cetera.
So some of these projects, as an example, the reconstruction at Topher, those are state funds. So when does the state send you the money for it?
They normally pay the contractors themselves and then send us a bill for our portion. I don't know, this one might be a little different, where they might be sending us the money and we pay the vendor. I don't have the specifics on that particular one yet.
Does it vary whether the money goes through SEMCOG?
Yeah, I mean, this is federal money flowing through the state, working its way to the, through all the little hands that it touches. So it really depends on what type of project and where the funding's coming from as far as how they process it.
It's always distributed from the Department of Transportation
Okay.
and their fiscal services people.
And so 9 Mile and Gratiot, the refuge islands, that will also, that's MDOT, correct?
That is correct, and it's a very, we could tell you all the secrets on how to obtain revenue from MDOT, but then somebody'd have to be killed. It's a very complicated process where the treasurer, finance director has to enter online and log in a certain amount of information, and then the funds are distributed once that is done, but that's a direct wire-to-wire kind of transfer.
And that is when we will receive the money and pay the contractor ourselves.
So it's very possible that even though you have the project and everything in this budget, you may not get the funds within this budget year.
It's possible, yes. I don't think that will, with the refuge islands, it will not happen, though. They will be entering the request within the next 2 weeks. We may actually get the money before the end of this fiscal year and then have to hold it for the following year.
So the maintenance project that's currently happening on Gratiot?
We don't pay a dime.
Nothing comes in and nothing goes out because that's strictly a state project,
That's a trunk line maintenance project.
maintenance.
That's what they call maintenance.
Not a project, it's maintenance.
Yeah.
Not gonna talk about that.
Doesn't feel like one, but it's a maintenance project.
I got a question to go, I don't mean to backtrack, but just a question for the Department of Public Works. I was just wondering if you were hiring any more employees this year? If you were increasing your staff at all?
Full-time or part-time?
Either.
I'm probably at max right now. I'm sitting on 9 DPW and water employees, 2 mechanics, and roughly 11 part-timers.
And then one more question, were both clerical new this year, or were they just under something else?
They,
Go ahead. You can
they
tell.
were, one was transferred up, full-timers from finance
Okay.
to 10 Mile.
So they're new to DPW?
Yeah, they, right, they're just built at 10 Mile.
We had it about 5 years ago, we consolidated, and then as we restructured the departments, did some work in the past few years, we actually physically reassigned them up
Okay.
to Public Works office, but yeah, they've been, the person, the
10 Mile
employee's
now
been there.
open to the public.
Yeah, okay. That's all I was wondering.
Then street lighting, again, this is an assessment fee cost, money in, money out at this point with, and council's had obviously a lot of discussions with an extremely successful program, so that is the assessment, and the reassessment's been made. Unfortunately, DT costs, as we win some, we get new bills and we go back or go around as they increase rates and charges, but that battle goes on separately from the budget. We did have a decrease because the final phase of the LED lighting changeover, again, as council knows, we're into a infill and addition phase of that project now. We're able to enhance the system. Any questions? We're happy to answer those.
Just one on that, I think so, it's on page 86 for the line item. We used part of the general fund balance, was this because we, well, it says we used about 73,000 from general fund, I'm assuming this is what this says. Is it because we are planning to spread it to the next year, but we've probably replaced more lights more quickly than we expected to?
There was a couple of factors, of course, the rate increases have to do with, and as a rolling fund, in this case, a special direct fund, sometimes the estimates run tight, and in this case, the fund balance obviously was, it was because of our accelerated program in some cases, and then the lighting costs, there was an advance, because it is a fund separately from general fund, so it has to maintain its own revenue and expenditures balance. Mr. Blum, any additions, comments?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where that 73, oh, you're looking at the appropriated fund balance?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is that?
That's just
General fund?
the amount that we're gonna spend in excess of the revenues. This fund will actually run in a deficit position for year 1 and 2 of the special assessment, and then zero out in year 3. Because we are spending the money up front for the changeover and then the new lighting. And it was designed that way to
Okay.
be a 3-year special assessment, break even at the end, But
Okay.
it will be in a deficit for year one and year
So
two.
year three, we'd see that same number go back into
Yeah.
general fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's its own fund.
Yeah.
That's not that
okay.
fund
Yeah, I
balance.
think that's what was throwing me. It has nothing to do with
Okay.
general fund.
Yeah, when it's,
Okay.
this fund's fund balance only. So, I mean, it operates with revenues and expenses, it has a fund balance, or, in this case, it has a fund deficit until the other assessments catch up to it.
Are you looking at the line item right now, Randy? Is, it's that 219?
Yep. Yeah,
000.
219 is the fund, and that is separate from general fund.
Okay. I think I'm still slightly confused, though, that 699.999, that line item right there, is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's because, when we do a budget, it has to be balanced. Even though we're going to spend more money than we bring in the revenue, the way you balance it is the appropriated fund balance. And that's just how it brings it in line. And from a state treasury standpoint, this is considered balanced.
Okay.
It's one of those oddities of governmental accounting and budgeting.
All right. Just pretend I understand right now and figure it out later.
It's kind of like the checkbook, you know, you know how much money you're gonna bring in, you believe in how much you're gonna spend. Unfortunately, in this checkbook, if we write more checks than we have revenue, we carry it as a negative until the new revenue fills in and replaces it.
This is our credit card balance. How's that?
Okay, next would be the DDA.
Oh, DDA 114, stable, certainly not growing. We have, if you look at the line items in the revenue expenses, we're going to end up with a fund balance, if this budget goes as projected forward, of some $81,000 after paying its general expenses. Again, appearance and function of buildings and streetscapes downtown, attractive conditions, sponsoring some promotions for downtown Eastpointe as defined here, and continues on that mission with some activities and obviously some property maintenance functions. It has musical events, which of course now we've been very happy again with successful promotion and revenue received for that. Put up flower baskets and maintain the decorative street lights, which we did attempt to see if we could contract with DTE to replace and take over our ornamental or auxiliary parking lights, and the expense was incredible to do that. I don't know what else to say. It was over $400,000. So next idea. At that case, we don't have the funds to do it. So, but we are maintaining the ornamental lights no matter how many times somebody hits them, and they are costly to replace on a per unit basis, and I think we have one left that's pre-purchased and ordered.
Most of them
Two,
under,
we have two? Oh, good. Well, they'll go quickly.
are most of them under camera now?
Yeah, I would say, no, I think there's a lot of them that would have to be private camera beyond us, you know, because they, otherwise,
Cameras.
yeah, whatever case that would be, it'd be able to fill, but, yeah, we lose, about one or two a year. Insurance is sought and reimbursed where possible.
Donations are covering the Music in the Plaza events again, the band fees?
I think so, Cardy. I think that piece now is fully funded.
One thing I would like to point out on the property tax capture, and this is, if you want to rail on your state legislature, when they cut the personal property tax and they theoretically are reimbursing 100%, they left off all of the tax financing areas, including DDAs. So you will see a decline in the both real and captured taxes within the DDA because the personal property is dropping, and we will not be reimbursed for that loss.
134 to 108 on page 144?
Yep.
Correct? Yep.
Chapter 20.
Chapter 20, page 125. Simple but critical section of our budget. We collect, we pay. And that's the a little bit behind in balances, and Mr. Blum can address some questions on that, but fundamentally, Chapter 20 is a reference to a state statutory provision providing for countywide drainage districts to be established to serve properties, with the drain commissioner's office being the lead organizer under the drain code. And these are a number of notes made about the conditions and the 8.5 mile relief, retention basin, and our operations related to the SEMSD. That was a very short version of a very long, complicated involvement.
I'm curious then, does the Greenbrier Station come under that category?
No, that is part of our system,
Is it?
part of our sewer system, yeah.
All right, I'll wait.
Capital improvements.
Capital improvements. Again, we do this in our policy a little differently. We had the special workshop with council. Page 170 is a restatement of some of those items that were discussed within budget. You'll see those noted, and the actual purchase of equipment highlighted, and this is where, again, we mentioned new election equipment, police replacement cars on a rotation basis, and a fire rescue unit that is depending on a model of response that we are engaged in internal review on the service of. On building issues, we have obviously some significant reinvestment in a couple areas, the city hall's audiovisual equipment update, long awaited and necessary to move us ahead. Building issues, parking lot replacement. Unfortunately, the parking lot was constructed in 2008. I don't think it takes much of a civil engineer to look at our parking lot and see the failure rate that has occurred. We are going to take the opportunity under this, though, to reorganize the parking outside, which I think if there's anybody in the room that hasn't been nearly backed into by somebody, please raise their hand. It won't be a big crowd. So we are and ask our consulting engineer to give a layout improvement for traffic safety out there. So we will get some other additional bang. Plus some underground cabling can be put in there at the same time, so that's very positive too.
So I didn't think the parking lot was that bad. I've definitely seen many times worse. Is there, so 2008 is about 10 years old now. What is the usual lifespan on a parking lot? How long do we expect like the parking lot at the police department to last? Or is there issues we don't see on top too? Like the, sometimes we have the collapsed drains or things like that.
I think the short summary, and please feel free, Mr. Elvins, to add in, is when we did some, and Mr. Pry too, when we did some sectional repairs around the drainage areas, we found very soft soils, in fact, almost buoyant soils. So those are contributing to the consistent failure. Since I've been here in 6 years, some of the cracking and development in the parking lot is rapidly expanded. So you actually have surface, in some cases it's been crack filled and maintained well, catch basins replaced, but the sub base is failing, and it is time. If you do in Michigan, a 15-year parking lot is actually, under this kind of traffic level, is not a new, that would be a good return. 15, 20 years would be really good. So 10 years, even though we say, is expected to be longer than only 10 years, it's probably not significantly out of the boundaries when you think of the wet weather conditions that the engineers report. And, it's been tested, and the result being that it's failing as a sub base. So
And one of the things they did not do when they built this was put in edge drains, which will be put in with this new replacement. And that is one of the problems, that the water just sits there.
And unfortunately, this building and this complex sits on a high water table, so that doesn't help us a bit. And quite frankly, we probably have a higher traffic flow in this parking lot than most of our residential streets do in some cases. So if you want to come around about water bill paying day and see what that's like, first get here at 7 before you get run over and killed. And then after that, you can sit and watch it. It's an interesting experience. So that's why we're going to change the traffic pattern and try to ease that a little bit.
And if you want to set up a toll booth, this is the place to do it.
Go back to that new revenue.
Actually,
Parking meters?
I've had 3 phone calls. I've had 3 phone calls in 2 days about somebody that wants to talk to you about a kiosk that you can pay your water bill and set it up right on the street.
I have one, you know I want to do that. That is, I've talked to anybody. It's been
I mean, it
through
would be
the
something like the
process.
Secretary of the State has
Yeah,
set up.
yeah.
I would definitely like to talk to them, because I've been trying to find someone that will coordinate with BSNA. I'd like to have one in the lobby, so when people are standing in line, they can walk over and do it, and actually one next to the drop box.
I'm really serious. I'll give you his number
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Oh, we're
I've
serious
been
too.
thinking about doing a road trip to one of those Wayne County treasurer kiosks and check them out, but
Well, this is
haven't had a
just like-
chance, so.
I think it's probably just like the Secretary of State
Yeah.
office, that you just put a scan bar.
Well, that's just it. You can scan your water receipt or scan your tax receipt with a barcode.
put
It
your
reads
credit
it,
card in and
makes
pays
a
the whole
payment, yeah.
And he was talking about having a drive-up, so design your parking lot with a drive-up kiosk to pay your water bills. Randy will be happy.
Sign one of the clerks with a tablet and a little credit card swiper.
I like to drive.
Middle of the
by,
blizzard,
yeah.
go take payments.
Well, I had a question about the water bills. Is there any way to make it so we don't, would it help if we didn't charge the $6 to pay it online? Would you think more people would pay it online if we were able to waive that fee?
Well, that's a third-party charge for the credit card company.
Is there any way to set it up to do it like
Charge.
through City Hall?
We have toyed with that idea, because I know Warren has an option where you can go onto their website and make a secure payment, and they charge like 37 cents or something.
Yeah.
We haven't, that's another one of those little road trips I haven't had a chance to take to figure out how they do that. We could absorb the cost of the credit card transaction fees within the water sewer fund. We cannot do that on the tax payments, and that's where we'd almost have to have 2 different providers. Well, here's the one for the fees for the taxes, and here, because it's
Right.
either all or nothing on the fee side. So that's why we haven't moved in that direction yet.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if, people would utilize it more, just being able to pay online if they didn't have to pay $6.
You can, what about, mine comes out of my checking though, not
That's
credit card. I don't think there's a fee on it. I don't.
Yeah, we pay, I think, 16 cents a
automatic ones,
transaction
you
for
have to
those.
The automatic ones
Credit
you don't have to
cards,
pay.
Right.
Yeah, there's
Residents don't.
there's to the city a small fee for your your withdrawal, but like he said, it's 16 cents versus if you go and use the pay for service, it's fully absorbed by the third-party service and they reimburse themselves with that.
Oh, and you're saying just on demand? This isn't like monthly hitting
Right,
your
yeah,
credit
because
card?
like, a lot of people, they don't like
Okay.
it to come out just regularly like
Right.
you do, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't know how much their water bill's gonna be and they might get a fixed budget. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? But if they could just go online and pay it and not be charged $6,
Mm-hmm.
who's already on a fixed budget, they might be more likely to not have to come here.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
No, we encourage that, and that's been a push and a drive to have obviously automatic withdrawals for the bills. If not that, then online payment. If we can add a kiosk, a carrier pigeon, whatever else, we'll be.
I'm
be
bringing
happy
over
to do
tomorrow.
so. Okay. Rubbish fund, page 128. It is an enterprise fund, which means there's variables, collection of fee for service charges. Now, this is just very tight budgeting. This is obviously a balanced fund with revenue from the disposal fee charged And then rubbish collection and then landfill costs are subdivided in here. Proposed for 17, 18, same fees that we had structured before.
But the landfill costs are included in the contract with the company, correct? What is the landfill charge? These are additional for construction?
The landfill is, we're setting aside a portion, well, basically whatever we have left over is being set aside for any sanitary or disposal authority payments that we will owe. Right now, if you look at how much is accrued in the disposal authority and how much we would have to pay, it's about $1.7 million, and we've got about $1 million set aside to cover that, so we're still a little bit
The
behind.
penalty?
Yeah. If we ever get that DEQ thing resolved with it,
It's almost done.
that'd be nice, because then we wouldn't have to set the money aside and we could actually lower the
Then what would you
rubbish fee.
do with it?
Lower the rubbish fee,
Yeah.
basically give it back that way.
It'll be done.
Yep,
We're almost done.
okay.
Any other questions there? If not, go to our largest other fund, which is Water and Sewer Fund, an enterprise fund. Fees for service charges, again, elements of small business in a sense, the way it's accounted for and managed. We have capital projects this year. 129 begins narrative, 130 funding level and summaries of performance indicators. We're serving over 13,550 customers. The remote MTUs reading. We do have costs inherent in operating the system with breaks, shutoffs, and other activities. We also offered the service line assistance program, service line assurance program, and that is done extremely well from our early brainstorming sessions to 4,000 customers. That's outstanding.
I think, real quick
Yeah.
about SLAP, I think I saw we had budgeted for 5,000 in this upcoming fiscal year. I was going to ask how many, you just said there was 4,000. Are we hoping for another 1,000 customers? Because I think if I did the math, you divide by 48 on the revenue amount I think we had. I thought it was 5,000. Page 143 in the line item. Yeah, I think we had budgeted 240,000.
Right.
So that'd be, I think, divided by 48, 's about 5,000. Are we thinking another 1,000
We-
people are going to join?
We're going to do another push to get people signed up, yeah. There's been a lot of changeover. People aren't aware of the program. We have people signing up all the time. Even without advertising, we're over 4,000.
Okay.
So the idea, excuse me, the idea is to put another flyer in the water bills and get some more people in it.
Okay.
So we've had some people try to scam the system. We're catching them. They find a break and then they don't fix it and try to sign up. It's like, no, can't do that. So,
We have a water and sewer projects budget this year. We've been very aggressive for several years. It'll slow down a little bit, but there is engineering costs for water projects as noted on page 130, and then sewer rehabilitation, various locations expended at over 1.3 million, and sewer and camera and cleaning various locations, $445,000.
I'm curious on the Greenbrier station, when you go into the line items, it's zeros. There's nothing budgeted.
We're not using it, correct? We turn,
No, they're fixing it right now. They're totally rebuilding it, and I remember when I questioned the bidding, and I wanna say it was around,
750?
I thought it was a $500,000 at least. But on the line item in here, there's nothing. 15, 16, 16, 17, there's,
What are the numbers?
I have no idea what number.
that particular line item is a leftover that we can't get rid of. We don't use that for any expenses anymore. The actual replacement of the pump station is part of the capital charges, and you would find that in the system improvement number. the 592, 538, 985, 538. Because that is part of the sewer system itself.
That was 538 dash what?
592, 538, 985, 538.
It's two from the bottom, right? And, so I think what, we have 1.8 million there, so if I recall, I thought that pump station was 750,000. We'd have another 1.1 million on top of that.
All right, that's the only place I could find it, and I went, wow, how in the heck are we doing this? Because we're tearing the hell out of that thing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Down to basically scratch.
You know, I mean, for the amount of work going there, I thought, I know we budgeted something, but I couldn't find it in this document, so, thank you.
I will note, in the water and sewer, Mr. Marion did approach me about the water reservoir project. We are budgeting for it in the next fiscal year. What we intend to do, and after our discussion today, I want to reassure that we are continually working on it. It has been a concern about, that's a $2.7 million single project commitment. We definitely will make it work with the cooperation of the city of Roseville. So Mr. Marucci has resolutions he'll be finalizing today for our joint agreement with Roseville, or suggesting council adopt them to formalize the program, approach Roseville about formally agreeing and then doing a cost allocation before it comes back to council for evaluation. And if a project can start any earlier, it would have to be on a interfund loan basis in the short term, but it'll be also dependent on what the cost sharing is. So we can, and we'll continue. We would like to have budgeted for it this year with optimism we can get all these parts in place now, but we are budgeting it for July 1st, 18, physically expensing, because we think that's probably closer to where we are right now, but if it can be moved ahead, we'll certainly entertain that and bring that to council as soon as practical.
We talk about the water sewer rate proposal, the increases.
Yes, we are absorbing a number of things this year. The Great Lakes Water Authority change, we've had to do that. Our capital expenses, I do have this is update to the point that we have. It's hard to get data from everyone else, but this is our price per gallon. If I could pass that down, Madam Mayor. I don't. It's physically edited with a write-in, but what it will be is with out capital charge change. Excuse me. It'll be $1.64 a gallon would be our pricing, and that is in the range. Now, some of the other numbers are not fully updated. That's why we have to put a whole bunch of caveats and comparisons on here. Mr. Marucci.
1.64 cents.
Yeah, 1.64 cents, yes. 1.64 cents per gallon. At $1.64, we'd be making some money, don't you think? 1.64 cents per gallon. So as you look at, of course, Warren's data is incomplete. City of Roseville right now, the best is 1.14 cents. Harper Woods 1.30 cents. Mount Clemens 1.41 cents. We would be 1.64 cents. Grosse Pointe Woods 1.52 cents. And St. Clair Shores 1.61 cents.
Why is our water more than Roseville's?
A factor of setting of rates based on the revenue and expense, man. I mean, these are, and the reluctance we have in some cases is that people are, AEW knows most of these better because they do them. I guess that's the best way to say it. When they do the updates, they know these better. We have some bigger sheets that we do annually regarding water and sewer rates that include, this was a quarterly billing, and Joe, what would you say the last effective date on the big sheet is when? August 1 of 16.
I always wait till about a month after the fiscal year, the citizens actually got their.
Maybe that's, and we
Joe,
put,
I just don't understand why our sewer cost is so much more than what Roseville and St. Clair Shores.
It's strictly done by the, however, each individual community charges. You have no idea what Roseville puts in or doesn't, the same way any of the other. That's strictly, remember, that's the rate they charge to their residents. It's not the rate that's being charged from whatever authority to that particular city.
Now, this is the proposed, like, if we passed exactly what's in here that's proposed, then that would be the price per gallon, right? That's not currently.
no, that is proposed.
6.4 is the, if you adopt the rate that's proposed by the city manager, what the rate will be.
Okay.
So are we supplementing those rates at all? I mean, in past, we've supplemented some from one of our
Yeah,
enterprise funds.
there's a number of factors that go into that. Actually, if we had known what we know now a year ago, last year's rates would have probably been $1 a unit higher than they are. One factor is we had actually seen a significant decline in our water loss, down to about 12% a couple of years ago. We had been using a 15% water loss. It has subsequently climbed back up to over 18%. And so last year's rates were based on a 15% water loss. This year I'm using 17.5. It may actually be higher than that. And there are a number of factors going into that too, between the all the cammering of the sewers where they have to jet out all the sewers as they do the cammering. There's a lot of water use there. We have had some significant water main breaks that have used up a lot of water there too. But any time the water loss ratio is modified, it does affect the rates. The other issue is at the end of last fiscal year, the water sewer fund actually had a negative cash balance of $3 million. That was a combination of some of the Great Lakes Water Authority charges and some capital projects that continued on. You know, we've been doing that SAW grant where they're cammering all the sewers. It seems like every dollar we spend on SAW grant, we find $50 worth of repairs. We've got to quit looking. If we don't know it's there, then it's not our liability. If we know about it, we got to fix it. So some of it is making up for that shortfall in cash from prior years. And it really does come down to the water and sewer rates themselves are what is necessary to cover the operating cost of the system. The only one that has any flexibility is the ready-to-serve charge, and if you reduce that, then there's no money for capital projects. And it's a big change this year. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I wish I could have, well, I wish I could have increased it for this current fiscal year, and then the change wouldn't be so dramatic. But
What's the you said 3 million in, well, I guess let me ask my question. On the water sewer where it just says the beginning fund balance and, you know, it's the summary, what then are the 42 million it says for the beginning fund balance? And
because this is an enterprise fund, we capitalize the water mains and the sewers and everything. The majority of the fund balance is the net book value of the system assets. It's money we've already spent, excuse me, it's money that's been spent years ago, and it's just sitting there underground doing its thing. I prefer to look at, like I said, cash balance. I mean, at one point, we had $12 million in cash and investments. We have spent that as intended, and then some, and we actually have zero investments and a negative cash balance of $3 million, which we had to borrow temporarily from general fund to make it balanced for the end of the year.
do we see that shown?
You will not see that on these schedules because that's a balance sheet item. What you'd see is a zero cash and a $3 million due to general fund, if you looked at the balance sheet side of this.
Okay. So then I guess, yeah, these rates, like we were saying, these rates are very high increases, I should say, percentage-wise. What is GLWA increasing us by? What's the difference? What are we using? What's the plan with the extra? I think it was 3 million. We're bringing in 3 million more than it was going to cost. Looking at, looking at the page we were just talking about, where it, at the end of the water sewer fund, Fund 592, it's like, revenue's 16.8 million, appropriations 13.9, so it's like just under 3 million.
Right.
We'd have then to, I guess, what's the plan here? The water increase is like 51% and 30% for sewer? Or no, yeah. No. The reverse. Well, in our, at the very beginning of the, I'm looking at the actual ordinance that we passed here.
Correct.
When we set the rates, so just the first couple pages in the budget.
Yeah,
The rest,
the appropriations ordinance.
the current, let's see, so the rates to be charged for water service, right now it's $2.76, and we have it as $4.18. And then the charge for sewer, let's see, wastewater, is right now $6.26 and going to $8.12. So is that GLWA or?
It's a combination of all those factors. I mean, GLWA, while they claim overall they increased their rates 0, we did not see 0. That might have been system-wide, and I'd like to know who got the decrease. Our volume rate went up, I believe it was 4.5%. The fixed charge, however, went up 8%. And that's where a lot of the units now are hitting us with fixed amounts. They really don't care how much we use because they have a cost that they have to pay for, and they just say, here's what you're gonna owe us. And that's been driving it. And we've been trying to play catch-up with the rates without going too large. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where we've got to go big this year. There's no way we can subsidize the rates any longer.
And then, yeah, and then the ready to serve has increased about $10. I think when we were looking, it's this sheet that we were just handed. I think our ready to serve was quite low, I think, compared to a lot.
Yeah, we're on the low side on that portion.
I just want to make sure, so are we, I just like to see, because obviously we've had lots of water and sewer problems in the state, Flint, Fraser. I just want to make sure we are investing appropriately, and I just wanted to know if that was just not just going just to GLWA, we'll have money left over then to
Correct.
use
Yeah.
ourselves
In the ready to
city.
serve charge.
The ready to serve charge will generate
Build your
about,
fund back.
Yeah.
You'll cover your wholesaler costs and then have some with the ready to serve charge. I wish I could say that the rest of the rates were actually gonna be in your fund balance for use, but pretty much that's covering the experiences and the rates.
Okay, so water and sewer, like, covers the GLWA costs or something else, and then ready to serve is
Capital.
meant for us to use for capital.
correct.
It's kind of like the ready to serve is kind of as what it is. It's your buy-in to the system to maintain our local system. Money stays in the local system there.
Right. That's what I was hoping.
GLWA going to this flat rate, I think also, we won't spend any time on it, but that's great for the GLWA, of course, which you are a member, and you feel better because the judge has given you power to have a representative vote on that. But of course, I'm being facetious. We got a new flat rate charge because it's the best way to raise money for the authority, not necessarily based on the best rate for the consumer, the retailer, as we are in the system.
And didn't they just shift additional unpaid water bills back to the GLWA? Didn't
Well,
Highland-
you're all
Highland
paying,
Park and-
you're paying, on your bills, you're paying a cents per cent. I forget exactly the number, I don't want to misquote it, but you're paying for the loss in Highland Park of $30 million.
And just recently, there was another additional from the Detroit water bills, unpaid water bills that they were going to also assess onto the GLWA?
Yeah, I don't.
They were transferring unused RAP money from the suburbs to Detroit of 1.7 million and change. I don't remember what the exact figure was. 1.7 plus.
1.7 is a lot better than 75 million. But
Yeah.
there's something also coming up with IRS related to the transferal of unpaid water bills to taxes.
Okay. I haven't seen
So
anything on
I
that.
think for the large part, Steve and I have had a discussion on it. It means that if you transfer your unpaid water bills onto your taxes, you can do that, but you can't take that as a tax deduction because it's not.
Well, that's always been the case, because it
And
is
I'm
not a
wondering if
property
lot of-
tax.
A lot of our residents have a
Oh,
misunderstanding about that.
absolutely. And the tax accountants put a blind eye, do the deduction, cross their fingers that you're not one of the 1% that get audited. I've always wanted to be the IRS whistleblower and get my 10% commission, but I don't think they'd bother with all the little bits. The amount of time they'd have to spend to audit everybody and catch that isn't worth their trouble. But yes, and we've had people that, until we did water shut-off, never paid a water bill, intentionally let it roll on taxes so they could deduct it on their income tax, and did this for decades, and then were shocked when we shut their water off for non-payment, so.
Are the number of shut-offs decreasing?
It's fairly consistent. As a matter of policy, we send out 500 notices every month, just because that's all the staff time we have. We generally shut off anywhere from 40 to 80, depending on who pays and how quickly they get in here.
Vicious cycle.
One more. Wonderful.
Motor pool, page 132, performance indicators. Again, this is an internal service fund, which means it exists only on the revenues from the other funds. A general fund, water and sewer, those are funds that put money into this internal servicing fund, kind of our own self-independent business within the business. We follow rental rates. We charge, the motor pool charges the other funds based on state of Michigan Schedule C rates, which are published through the Department of Transportation. We have obviously some, within our capital budget, we are funding a replacement of code enforcement vehicles per our schedule that we've planned in the past on rotating those through. And then pretty much the operation of the rest of the fleet is funded through this division of the expenditures.
Does this include the, like the street sweeper? Would that come out of this fund?
Correct.
And
Yes.
the Vector that's on the,
Yes,
that would come out of this fund also?
correct.
While we're on that, I did have one question about the Vector on the capital improvement plan. It says it's a 5-year lease, but you only have it down for 4 years. I was wondering if that would go into the 21-22 year budget?
The current Vector that we have will be used as a trade-in that will cover the first-year lease. So
Okay.
it's still a 5-year lease, it's just the first year we're paying for it with a used vehicle.
So wouldn't it be then 18, 19, 19, 20, 21, 20, 21, and 21, 22 then? Because for the first year would be free?
Well, if we get our ducks in a row, the first year could be before the end of this fiscal year. That's the plan right now. Otherwise, everything will shift a year.
Okay.
So your first year is actually 16, 17, if it goes according to plan, then your 4 years follow.
Okay.
The one that we currently have, I had some questions about that too. The one we currently have, is it, I believe it's 10 years old or something like that?
Well, we're in 17, so it's 11. Yeah, it's 2006.
I was curious about the price on this because it seems to me for the amount that we're leasing for, we'd be better off purchasing a Vector because when we bought it, we only paid a little over $300,000, and I mean this is getting pretty close to that, and it's just to have it for 4 years, and we got 11 out of buying it.
Yeah, it's
So,
360, I guess, if you add this up.
Mr. Fry, would you like to comment?
We own it at the end of the lease.
oh, okay.
It's a capital lease in effect.
Financing purposes, but at the end of the lease, we own it.
Okay, so we'll still get that lease in front of us, won't we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In
Okay.
fact, we
That makes a
will-
big difference owning it and then giving it back after.
Yeah.
After
that's,
paying that much
that would be a
Yeah.
pretty, terrific lease.
Not
or
your
leasing
local
company.
Morales lease.
But we still have to do cost comparison on the sweeper and the Vector about outright purchase and lease. You still have to do that calculation to see which is your best lease final cost along with that. And it always comes back to council for approval.
No, the street sweeper we don't own. We were just straight leasing that?
Well, this is another one. At the end of the lease, we own it. So we made our final lease payment. We own it now. And that will also be used as a trade-in on a new sweeper.
Okay.
Yeah, we call it a lease, but it might as well be called a
Like a
car
rental
loan.
Sort of like, yeah, it really is, it
Yeah.
functions
A
almost
purchase
as a-
agreement.
Yeah,
it's an
That
installment
makes more sense,
loan
because I
in a
thought
sense.
I thought these prices were like really high just for like a lease.
yeah. Well, like the street sweeper, the first 4 years of the 5-year payment included maintenance. So the brushes and things like that.
Yeah.
So
They're
it's a little higher than if we just flat out bought it and then went and bought all the brushes ourselves. You just see it in a
That was a
different
major
manner.
decision when we bought that, though, because we had gone through over and over and over leasing them, not leasing them, but paying someone to do the work. And it became so cost prohibitive that it was much less for us to go out and, whether you call it a lease agreement or a purchase agreement, to go out and get our own machine.
And the frequency and service characteristics are just, extremely much better than going and contracting to come in twice a year and sweep your streets and leave. And
And the Vector was the availability of it, because there were so many times that they would end up with broken lines and you didn't have the equipment. And then to find the equipment, it seemed, as I recall, so many people, so many cities where if you need a Vector, 9 times out of 10, your neighboring cities also needed it, and the availability to you was.
Well, been backing us up right now because we've been spending thousands on issues that we got going on right now. Thankfully, Roosevelt,
And we determined a new part is not all we need either for this.
Okay. Do you have additional questions?
that completes the schedule. We had reviewed all sections of that, and now subject to, I believe, Mr. Monaco had revenue questions, or you want to go to those? or-
Actually, I had one more for the motor pool. I see underground storage tank here. We talked about that earlier. I just see like $1,100. Seems like that was, I think that's, yeah, 1,100. Not too much. It's at the,
Go ahead.
it's one of the notes in the motor pool, the first note.
That is the insurance, in case there's a leak at the gas pumps at 10 Mile. So we pay that every year, to make sure there's an environmental cleanup.
Inspect it like crazy.
Oh, they do that separate, yeah. But that's actually a fairly cheap insurance policy.
Yeah, I was thinking of a different
Nope.
item.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, that
Any other
completes our
questions?
review.
Any other questions? Okay.
I don't think so.
We'll let everybody go home. All look so tired.
Okay.
All right, you're free to go home.
You're free. You're free.
Run, late.
Thank you for staying so late. Carol, next time, we're gonna have all kinds of questions for you.
we're prepping it.
Did you have additional questions at all? Carrie, you said you had something after the department
revenue
heads were
ones?
leaving.
I was running through them here. think a few of these I could definitely ask offline, just probably more of a question for myself. Like a couple items I saw that were, like, say for, activity for, let's see, 15-16 activity, and then the amended budget for last year, say it was, 20,000 both years, and then we budgeted for this year like 5,000. I have probably a couple examples here. It seemed, I didn't know why we weren't just budgeting 20,000. It seemed pretty consistent for the last 2 years. I think one was like I think gas and oil line item in one of these here. It was like we budgeted a lot less, or what is this for? No, not that one. There were a couple other things I just didn't know why we didn't.
Okay.
Seemed like it was a pretty solid.
Thought it was historical trend was tracking and then it didn't.
Yeah.
So, okay. And we don't have a footnote particularly on any of those?
I have page 28/33 for the line item, so that would be, let's see, so 28. So like this one, yeah, for gas and oil for the general fund, I see just under 51,000 for 15-16 activity. Then we have 70,000 budgeted for 16-17, but so far we've used 38,000. So I'd guess it will go a little over 40 or something with just another month to go, or I don't know what the exact date was that we stopped these numbers. But then we budgeted 70,000 again. Even though the last 2 years looks like we're not going over 50.
Are you talking in PD, police department?
Yes, yep. Yeah,
In
740.
previous years, part of the gas has been paid out of the drug forfeiture fund, but because that's running out, we've shifted 100% back into the general fund. The reason that the year-to-date is how it is we pay as we fill the tank, and then it gets allocated out. So it just depends on at what point in the month we get a fill-up and how it gets spread around. It will probably be over 50, if not closer to 60 by the end of the year.
Okay.
Fortunately, gas prices have stayed a little bit lower, so.
Right. Okay. There was another one then on like 54. Let's see. There was something about we paid the. Let's see. This is the general fund admin / community center. We paid. That's in this current fiscal year. We paid like 17,000 in public utilities for the. We pay the utilities, not rare.
We pay the electric at the community center because it's on the MMRMA electric choice, whatever they call it.
Oh.
We then turn around and we will bill RARE at the end of the year. They will reimburse us. When that property's sold, then we're out of it and we're done. But right now, we're just playing middleman because we can't cut that particular account off.
Oh, okay, that's.
If we move
That'll
on
be,
to the
that'll be
program.
zero at
The
the
one
end of the
on-
year after I bill it.
Oh, okay.
And Rare has sold that property now too, so.
Okay.
When
Well,
does-
I was thinking the rare building in Roseville. And I'm
Oh,
like,
oh.
it's the-
8 Mile
not
Community
the
Center.
8 Mile community.
When does the sale complete for the
They're
old community
attempting
center?
to close right now. We've had a few other inspection things, and in fact, as of today, I had another question. And I'm sure Mr. Lipinski would, and as Mr. Marion, my fellow board member, will say, we've been working on it. We have a good, excellent price, and
Close,
it's
real close.
we've authorized the sale, and we're just trying to now actually do the closing, actually. Yeah, we'll be happy to. It's a tremendous building, and we've made good money on it, and we're sad to see it go.
So I just had one question about the projected budget forecast. How much is your target for your fund balance? After 2022, you have it sitting at 12 million. Basically, you have the 12 million for 3 years running.
Yeah.
Is that what your goal is?
But
I don't
your
think-
fiscal policy calls for it to be as recommended by the auditors which is broken up into two components of, the policy has. In total, you're looking at 15 to 18% is our objective
And so 15 to 18% is,
of the general fund expenditure.
okay.
And that's kind of our tracking mechanism.
But yeah, it will peak at the 12 million, and then we'll start chewing into it. It just depends on how fast. The goal is to stretch it for the full 20 years of SMORSA. We'll see how well we do. So,
And that's subject to if there's an override to maintain the rates, you know, things that go in the future. But that's the objective, ma'am.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions? All right. So let's move on to item number 3, then, which even though we have it scheduled to vote on the city manager's contract on June 6th, we felt that maybe it was necessary or posed the opportunity for discussion at this format so that we could just vote on it on the June 6th meeting. So I wondered if,
I was wondering if I could make a motion to reschedule it till June 6th, because we've already been here for 2 hours tonight, and I just feel like we'll have more time.
you want to do the discussion on June 6th?
Yes, and then we could vote it on at the last meeting in June.
Okay.
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
All right. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table item 3, discussion of city manager contract, till June 6th.
We have support?
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
All right. And the next item is hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Seeing 2 out there, does one person want to speak?
Shoot him in the foot.
Evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Walter Kubiak, Eastpointe resident. My question is to Tony. I have a sprinkler system, and just about ever since I've had it, I have to go out and physically pull up some of the heads because the pressure is only about 42 or 44 pounds. How long before I don't have to do that anymore?
Here's a quick fix. And Rob, pull your heads up, spray them with WD-40.
Say that again, please?
Pull the head up,
Yeah,
spray it with WD-40.
I've tried that. You know, it's just, you know, if I've got 6 or 7 heads on that particular line, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. You know, and then too, it depends on how much water usage is going on at that time.
Well, we maintain a constant 42 PSI, which is more than enough to operate a sprinkler system, more than enough.
I'd really like to see 55 or 60.
You would like to see another $10 million in the water repair if we did 55, 60 consistently.
What are we looking at? 10 years maybe before, you know, you can raise the pressure?
You and I both be dead.
Yeah.
We would not, and
WD-40.
this is, we can have subsequent discussions, but yeah.
Does the other person in the public want
The other,
All right, with that, the hearing of the public is closed. Move on to mayor and council reports. Let's start with Mr. DeMonico.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just want to thank all the department heads for coming out and discussing the budget with us.
Thank you. Mr. Kleinfeld.
No report.
Ms. Lucido.
I just want to thank all the department heads also. I appreciate your time this evening. It's definitely helps make it a lot more informing to us, having you guys here to explain everything to us. And that's it.
All right. Mr. Marion.
Well, again, a thank you to all the department heads. This is over and above that they have to do. The big thing on a personal note is every life has a book, and we just closed a big chapter in ours, and we've just opened a new one, and we're going to be moving up north. We closed Friday on a house up on Harrison, on Arnold Lake, and it's something that my wife and myself thought we had to do. So I'll be stepping down from council.
Miss you, John.
Effective June 6th. That's it.
Well, it's going to be very hard to replace you. But I wish you the best of luck, because you certainly have given more back to the community than 10 people, 10 of our usual residents. And there's so many different places that we have to look and find another John Marion. And I'm not sure we'll ever find another John Marion. So I certainly thank you for your time, and of course, we'll say goodbye on June 6th, but I appreciate you mentioning your retirement today.
How are you gonna run the dog park from up there?
He hasn't sold his house yet, so.
They're on their own.
Cameras up there.
Yeah.
That's what the internet connection's there for, right? You'll be monitoring it from,
He might.
All those cameras he put in, he might be able to reach up there. I would like to thank all the department heads. Some of them are left, but I think that the budget this year was done really exceptionally well. So thank you, Mr. Blum, Mr.
Hiding in
Alderman
his office. He ran.
is gone, and the chief and everybody else has put the budget together. It was so much easier to read and made a lot of sense, and I think you did a great job on the budget. So I really appreciate that, having been through multiple budget years. This is probably one of the easiest to read and understand. And I appreciate everybody being here to answer the questions that we might have had. So with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
second.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Marion.
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido.
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned at 8:30.